Hi, this video is going to be on the content of Unit 4, Activity 2, which is going to focus on application and resume writing. But before we get into those two topics, Part 1 deals with synonyms. And synonyms are words that have similar meanings. So if you have a word, they give you an example here, a word like small, a word like little, compact, portable, tiny, miniature. They're all synonyms. They all essentially mean the same thing. And I find that a lot of times students try to replace words with synonyms a lot in their writing. And sometimes that works well. Sometimes they can find a better word, a stronger word. So instead of saying small, they might say miniature, and that could be more descriptive and have more detail, and it could work better. Or sometimes if a student is using the word small, for example, a lot in a piece of writing, they don't want to keep repeating themselves, so they want to find a different word, a synonym that can replace it. The problem is that not all synonyms have the exact same meaning. So sometimes I find students are replacing words with similar words, but they're not saying what they think they're saying, or they're not getting across the same message. So for example, tall. If you look up tall on the internet and find synonyms for it, you'll see words like lofty and giant and statuesque and large and soaring. So all of those words in the right context can be used for tall, but they don't all work in every situation. So for example, if you're talking about a person being tall, you wouldn't call them soaring. If you're talking about a building being tall, then you could say soaring. So it kind of depends, and you have to be a little careful when you use synonyms to make sure that you're still getting across the right meaning. And to practice this, there are two exercises here, and they both lead to, they're both links to other websites. And the first one is called Vocabulary Exercise Synonyms, and they give you 10 pretty straightforward, pretty simple words, and then they give you a whole bunch of possible synonyms, and only one is the correct answer. Only one really fits each one of these words. So what you're going to be asked to do is just choose the right synonym, and then you can click Check Answers to see how you did. So on this page, there's 10 words, and you're trying to find a synonym for each. And in the second exercise, which is called Find the Correct Synonyms, there's going to be another 10 words, or in some cases small phrases, and again, you're going to be asked to find the right synonym. And again, you can check your answers when you're done. So all we're trying to do here is getting you in the habit of trying to use synonyms and trying to diversify your writing by including different words, but also making sure that we're using the correct synonyms and not saying something that we don't mean. So again, the whole purpose of Part 1 is just to try to improve our language use and try to expand our vocabulary. You can use synonyms, by the way, in any type of writing. Whether it's creative writing, whether it's writing a resume, whether it's writing a letter or email, you can always improve your writing no matter what type of writing you're doing by using synonyms. With that said, Part 2 gets into one of the main parts of this activity, and that's completing applications. And we'll focus a little bit on work applications, but these tips that they're going to give you here apply for any type of applications. For example, some of you have contacted me recently about applying for summer school, and you have to follow a link on the St. Mike's website and fill out an application for that. And so what they're going to provide you with here are do's and don'ts when filling out applications. And so they list about 6 different do's, things that you should do when you go to pick up an application and when you fill out an application. And then don'ts, things that you should make sure that you don't do. For example, spelling mistakes. You want to avoid spelling mistakes at all costs. If you're handing something in or submitting something like an application, oftentimes the person that reads it doesn't have a chance to physically meet you, so they're basing everything on your writing, and if you have spelling errors, that's a really big red flag. Someone is not likely to accept your application, especially if you're applying for a job, if you have spelling errors in it. So what I'd like you to do is just take a look at the do's and the don'ts, And then if we continue on down here, they're going to have some more tips on how to complete an application. And they're going to talk about pre-reading, during writing, and after reading and after writing. So what do you do before you read the application, before you fill out the application? What can you do with pre-reading? So the example is skim and scan. So they're going to suggest that you read through the whole application before you start filling it out, just to make sure that you have an understanding of it. And then what do you need to do when you start writing and filling in the application? So they're going to give you an idea that maybe ask for 2 application forms or print out 2 application forms, one for practice, which you can use a pencil or you can use to just play with and kind of use as rough work, and then a second application you can fill in black or blue pen, and that'll be your completed official application. And then what can you do after writing your application? So after reading and writing the application, they give you an idea here, and this is something that I encourage students to do a lot of when they do any type of writing, is read what you've written out loud. If you read it out loud, you're more likely to notice any errors that you might have, in this case, in an application. There is a practice exercise here, so they talk a little bit about the different types of applications that you'll have to fill out, and then they give you an example of a social insurance number application. And so if you click on the link here, it'll take you to a social insurance application for the Government of Canada, and you'll see that this is an electronic online application that you can fill in. So I would just fill my name in like this, right? You don't have to actually print it and write with pen, but this is just a basic government application, something that all of us have to fill out at some point in our lives. We have to fill out applications all the time for the government, right? And so this just gives you sort of a sample of a practice application. And so that covers application writing. You're not going to have to fill out an application as an assignment in this course, but when we get into the assignment here for this activity, you are going to have to show me that you can go over other people's applications and you can identify what's been done correctly and what's been done incorrectly. So it's important that you read through the tips and you read through the do's and the don'ts, so that when you look at other people's applications in the assignment, you have a good idea of what is a good application and what is a poorly done application. And then we go on to the last part, part 3, resumes. And so at some point in all of our lives, we have to write resumes. And you've probably written a resume before in your life already, either in another class or when you've applied for jobs. And so what we're going to do here is we're just going to give you some resources that you can use to write a better resume yourself. And so, for example, if we click here, listen and view a rollover resume. Actually, I'm going to download these ones while I'm at it. Okay. If you look at this this rollover resume, what they'll do is they'll go over all of the different parts of a resume, and you can actually listen. If you click here,
objective, provide a brief explanation of your.
It'll give you an audio clip of each of the different parts. So it'll explain what you need to put at the top of a resume, how you should write an objective, how you should fill in your skills and your experience, your education, and your references. So this is just sort of an interactive, again, with some audio included, that'll kind of go over a basic resume and everything that you would need to include. There also is resume resources here that you can download. And so, for example, one of the downloaded resources is going to talk about action verbs. And what you may already know about resume writing is you're usually not writing full sentences. You're usually writing points in a resume, and those points usually start with action verbs. So if you're trying to describe your management skills, here are some words that you can use. If you're trying to describe your teaching or creative or technical or clerical skills, these are different verbs that you can use. So oftentimes what you can do is you can use words from these lists to start the points when you're describing your skills in your resume. So just, again, a little helpful guide on some words that you can use. There also is a resume planning sheet here. And in this sheet, it'll go over all the different parts that you would need in a resume. So personal data, the job goal, so what position you're applying for, the special skills that you have that relate to that job, your education, your work history, any additional information, and your references. So what you can use this as is kind of like as your rough work. You could fill in the material here, and then you know you've got everything that you need to create a resume. You've got all the different parts. There is another worksheet here as well, which is very similar. It's a little bit simpler, called the resume data collector, and you can use it in the same way as rough work. And so again, personal data, work objectives, special skills, education. They go through 9 different parts that you can include in a resume, and you can kind of fill them in here. So what I would suggest is you can download and you can save these resume resources, and the next time that you have to write your own resume, you can have these handy to make sure that you're including everything you need. In this activity, we're going to go on to the assignment in my next video. You're not going to have to write your own resume and submit it to me, but you are going to have to look at other people's resumes, and you're going to have to judge them and decide which, you're going to have to look over 2 particular resumes and decide which one is better. So it's important that you know the different parts of a resume and you know the different materials that should be included. So definitely go over this material and make sure you're comfortable with what a resume should look like. And that's about it. Now we're at the ending of the content page. Once you get here, you can move to the assignment, and I will do another video on the assignment for this activity. If you have any questions, please let me know.